Hello, and welcome back to Clay's 50 Film Challenge! Yeah! My name is Clay Johnson, and this is finally the last film, or the last video for my 50 Film Challenge. I've finally gotten through all 50 films. It only took me about a year and a half to do a year-long challenge. You know, stuff happens. But yes, I am going to be reviewing the last 5 films of my 50 film challenge. And they are Big Night, which was suggested by Dan Buck. Thank you for that, Dan. About Time, suggested by Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. I'm a Cyborg, but that's okay. Suggested by Erica Blue. Thank you very much, Erica. No Times for Sergeants, suggested by Sheila. Thank you, Sheila. And then The Color Purple, which was suggested by Elizabeth. So first of all, thank you guys for these suggestions. So let's go ahead and let's start with the first film, which was Big Night. Which is an American comedy drama from 1996. It was directed by Campbell Scott and Stanley Tucci, and it starred, Tony Shalhoub, Stanley Tucci, Ian Holm, Minnie Driver, and Isabella Rossellini. And it is basically a film about 2 brothers who have come over from Italy to America and are trying to create a life for themselves. And they open this restaurant, and they're 2 completely different people, because Stanley Tucci's character, who is called Secondo, which literally means second. It took me a while to realize his name is Secondo. He was second. His brother is Primo, which basically means the first, roughly translated. And so they're just named first and second. I thought that was really funny. But they have come over to Italy, and like I said, or come over from Italy to America to start this restaurant. And like I said, they're very different people because Secondo basically just he wants to be a successful businessman, and he is basically willing to do whatever he needs to get there. And he obviously wants his brother to come along with him because he knows that his brother has talent, but he just wants to be successful. And his brother, Primo, is 100%, he's a chef, and he is 100% about his food. And he is unwilling to compromise his food or really his art for anything else. If people appreciate his food for what it is, that's great. But he's not willing to water it down to make people happy. And they are basically, Secondo is being kind of, at least he believes, sort of mentored by Ian Holm's character Pascal, who basically keeps offering for them to work for him. And so basically he sets up a meeting to where, because they're not doing well financially, and Pascal basically tells them, next week, Louis Prima is going to come to your restaurant. It's going to be a big thing. And so they go all out for this big night, and, hence the title. And basically, they sink everything into this one night, and if this doesn't work, they're done. And it just ends up being this huge, great party celebration thing, and other things are going on, but it's a really interesting look at these, especially these 2 guys and their relationship as brothers, and the way that they look at life, the way that they look at their talents and what they can give, and I would say I mean, the film it's great. There is literally a scene where one character cooks eggs, and it's just silent, and we just watch them make eggs, and then we watch them eat eggs, and it's just kind of wonderful. And the film is worth watching just for the food alone. It's really good. So I'm gonna give this one a 3. So then the next film was About Time, a British romantic comedy from 2013. It was directed by Richard Curtis and stars Domhnall Gleeson, Rachel McAdams, and Bill Nighy. And this film is basically, it is basically at its core just a romantic comedy. But it does, however, have a sci-fi element in it where Bill Nighy, who plays James, at the beginning talks to his son Tim, played by Domhnall Gleeson, and they basically when his son turns 21, he takes him aside and says, "Just so you know, the men in our family can travel in time." And it's just a thing that's kind of put out there. It's this weird kind of sci-fi MacGuffin, and it's used, but I would say that you could do this film without that element, and it would be almost exactly the same film. But I think that they use it just to kind of highlight, because really what this film is about, it's not about time travel. I do think that they use the device pretty well in some pretty comedic moments. They also use it to kind of in some more poignant moments, kind of because you think, oh, you can time travel, you never have to go through pain, you never have to live with a mistake. And they do use it to cover up some mistakes, but then they also, because what the film is really about is kind of enjoy living and enjoying and loving life. It is about the experience of life and kind of not taking it for granted. Because basically, uh, you know, Bill Nighy's character tells his son that, he basically used his so that he could just read as many books as he wanted, because you only have so much life, and he just wanted to read as many books as he possibly could. And his son pretty much tells him right away, well, I'm probably going to use it to find love. And he does. He ends up, meeting Mary, played by Rachel McAdams, and he accidentally screws up their first meeting, so then he has to go back and try to meet her in a different way. And like I said, they use it a lot of times for dramatic effect or comedic effect, but for the most part, like the plot itself doesn't really rely on the time travel, because he uses the time travel, to re-meet this girl that he realizes he's in love with. But he messed up their first meeting, so now she doesn't recognize him. So now he has to go back and fix that. But then they end up meeting and falling in love and everything. And there is a point at which he tries to use the time travel to help someone in his family. And then I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but basically he realizes that by doing that, he then screws up a lot of other people's lives. So he then has to decide how to deal with that. But I mean, that could also, that could also be something you have to learn even without time travel. That sometimes you have to make difficult choices when trying to help people, and sometimes the easy way out is not the best. Sometimes you have to take the hard road. And when I watched this film, I really enjoyed it, and I read a couple of other film criticisms, and a lot of criticisms said that it was, you know, overly sentimental and schmaltzy and blah blah blah. And but then there were some that I agreed with more that said yes, it is sentimental. It's kind of uh, oozing with treacle, but it's done in a way that you kind of don't mind. I know I didn't mind it. I really kind of liked the way that it was done. I mean, because, you know, it's on its face just this kind of very down to earth British romantic comedy. Very normal, very. And then they throw this time travel element, and it's kind of silly but in a sweet way. And you know, then you could kind of tear apart the fact that yes, there are some plot holes with the time travel, but there's literally a part at towards the end where they say, well, this is going to break a lot of rules, but you know what, I don't really care. So they flat out just say, yeah, we're going to mess this up, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be fine. And I don't know. I really liked it. I really enjoyed this film. Now, yes, I am a little bit of a sucker for things like that. But I have seen things that I thought were just, you know, did this kind of over sentimentality in the wrong way. And I feel like if there is such a way as being overly sentimental correctly, I think that this hits it. So I'm going to give this one a 3. So then the next one, I'm a cyborg, but that's okay. This is a film from 2006, South Korean romantic comedy directed by Park Chan-wook. And this is basically about a girl who is played by Im Soo Jung. The character's name is Cha Young Goon. And so Young Goon, as they call her several times throughout the film, basically she is convinced that she is a cyborg, and at the beginning of the film, she slits her wrist and puts in some electrical cables and then plugs it in because she needs to recharge. And you know, the thing is, I mean, I will say this is probably the first South Korean film I've ever seen, and so it was definitely, the tone was something that I wasn't used to, but and I mean, I haven't seen any other Korean films, so I don't really have a lot to compare it to. I don't know if it's typical of Korean films, although the things that I read said that at least for this director, this was kind of different. Actually, this was kind of met by the Korean audience not nearly as favorable as some of his other offerings. But basically, you know, she's got this kind of crisis of who she is, and she keeps talking about, because her grandmother was also committed, and she was really close to her grandmother, and so her, basically the idea is that she doesn't feel like she had closure with her grandmother. She misses her grandmother, and she doesn't really understand why she was taken away, and she is constantly trying to get back to her. And she obviously she's in an institution, so she's surrounded by other people. There are various different characters. The main other character is a character called Il-soon, played by Rain, who basically is a guy who is a kleptomaniac, but he steals intangible things. Like he steals people's lucky ping pong serves. He steals their quirks, their different things, and she basically, they mesh together because, um, you know, she's trying to get him to steal things that will make it easier for her to, that she thinks will make it easier for her to get back to her grandmother. But he starts to uh, see kind of what is going on, and the thing is that there's a lot of magical realism in this, and there are things, a lot of times we will see things from her perspective, and you start to wonder, okay, is what she thinks actually real? And then you realize that no, it's actually all in her head, but sometimes we'll see through her eyes. And he starts to kind of uh, go along with her and try to help her, but does so in a way that's not demeaning. He is he's accepting the reality that she sees, um, and but at the same time trying to take care of her. And it starts to form this really interesting, sweet bond between them. And it's one of those that, like, I would love to see like little mini adventures from some of these side characters, and see like other things that happen between these two. There's a lot here, I feel. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was very intrigued. There were definitely some things. There were definitely some times that it took me a little bit to catch up. But because like I said, I've never really seen Korean cinema before. But there were also just some real beautiful moments in this film that really kind of made anything that didn't make sense. It kind of washed it away. It didn't really matter that much to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. So I am going to give this a 3. So then the next one was No Time for Sergeants, a film from 1950. Oh, no, sorry. It is a film from 1958. Was on the wrong thing for a second. It's based on a book from 1954, but it is a comedy film directed by Mervyn LeRoy and starring Andy Griffith. It also has appearances from Don Knotts, as well as some others. But basically, the film is about a kid from the backwoods, played by Andy Griffith. Will Stockdale is his character's name. And basically, the army is after him because they think he's a draft dodger. Come to find out, his dad was actually hiding his draft notices, so he just didn't know. So he's kind of marked as a bad seed from scene 1. And it's a very from then on, basically, the film is a series of misunderstandings that look like they're going to go badly for Will, but because of his charm, and he has this way, something it's kind of a thing that has been done a lot, the kind of naive, not stupid, but not more kind of ignorant character, but comes off smarter because of the way that he somehow outwits people, because they don't understand why he doesn't understand, and then he catches up with them and goes past them somehow. It's that kind of thing. I mean, you can definitely see this was came out before the Andy Griffith Show. This is one of the big films that kind of gave him the Andy Griffith Show. And whereas this obviously is a much more comedic character, than he would play in the Andy Griffith Show. You can see a lot of the blueprints, because even in the Andy Griffith Show, he would do this kind of, play dumb a little bit, and then pop them with wisdom kind of thing. And it's a very similar type of thing. It's just whereas in the Andy Griffith Show, he's played up as smart. In this one, he's not seen as smart, but he's smarter than people give him credit for. And so, I mean, you can see a lot of the, like I said, you can see a lot of the blueprints for this. You can also, this is probably the inspiration for what would eventually become Gomer Pyle. Obviously, this is Andy Griffith and that was Jim Nabors, but you can definitely see the template for what that show eventually became. Teddy, stop. So this film definitely started a lot of things. And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but I will say I thought this film was probably about half an hour too long. I think it's almost 2 hours, and the majority of the movie happens in one place, and I feel like after they leave that place, they could have just been done there. I feel like it went on a bit too long, and there definitely were some other things. One of the other characters was also supposed to be from the South, but you could tell that the guy was from New Jersey, and it was really kind of painful to hear him going back and forth between the New Jersey and the attempt at Southern. And so there was a little bit of that. There were definitely some things that worked, but there were also some things that didn't work as well. But at the same time, you can definitely see, like I said, this was inspiration for at least two pretty big shows from the time, the Andy Griffith Show and eventually Gomer Pyle. So while I did enjoy it, there were just a couple of things. Like I said, felt a bit too long, and so I can't give it a full recommendation, but I will give it a two. 2 fingers. There we go. So then the last film is The Color Purple. This film is from 1985. It is a period drama directed by Steven Spielberg. And it is based on the Pulitzer Prize winning novel from 1982 by Alice Walker, and the book is shares the same name as the film. And it starred Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover, among several others. This film this is one of those that I've heard a lot about. I think this was one. I thought it came out later than it did. I think I thought it came out like in the 90s, because I remember hearing about, Oprah being in a film and stuff like that. Although I don't know. Sometimes I have weird memories from when I was too young to actually remember, and I just place it later. But I don't know if maybe this had a re-release or what. But this is a film that I've heard about throughout my life, but obviously I've never seen it until now. This was, I don't think it was 100% her very first film. I think she had a really small role in a film before it, but this was definitely the first film in a lead for Whoopi Goldberg. And I believe it was Oprah Winfrey's first film. And it basically follows Whoopi's character, whose name is Celie, Celie Harris Johnson, basically follows her throughout her life, basically tells the story of this girl who, when we first meet her, is pregnant by her father. And basically she is told her whole life that she's ugly and that no one loves her, and the only person that especially in her young life that gives her any sort of acceptance and love is her sister, Nettie. And at one point in the film, let's see, Danny Glover's character, Albert Johnson, basically comes to her father and says, "I want to marry your youngest." And he says, "Well, you can't have my youngest," because her father has his eye on on the youngest, but you can have the other one. And so he basically takes her as a consolation prize, and it's obvious that he never loves her. He beats her. He treats her horribly. Allows her sister to stay there only to try to rape her, and when she says no, kicks her out of his house. And so basically, throughout her whole life, the only person that she ever felt gave her any sort of um, self-worth, she's been kept away from. And she says that she'll write letters, and at least as far as we know, if she is writing, the letters aren't getting through. And so basically, it just follows Celie throughout her life, kind of dealing with this, and also meeting other people, meeting Oprah Winfrey's character, Sophia Johnson, who basically marries Danny Glover's son, Harpo, played by William Pugh. And basically, he tells his son, because she is a strong, independent woman, and so basically his father tells him to beat her, to kind of put her into submission, and when that doesn't work, they end up leaving. But basically, I'm going far too into the plot. Basically, eventually Celie, between uh, the example from Sophia and another character, Shug Avery, played by Margaret Avery, she starts to have self-worth, starts to question the things that she's been told her whole life, starts to really, the film really explores, obviously, I mean, it explores racism because they're a black family, kind, I mean, they're kind of like the bottom of the barrel because they're like poor black folks living amongst white people. And so, it's like the bottom, and how difficult that is. But yeah, it deals with definitely racism and sexism, and I don't want to give things away, but I mean, obviously, if this is something, a life that you have come from, there's definitely a trigger warning. But if overcoming this type of thing is something that would give you strength, this is definitely something that you should watch. I really enjoyed this film. Oprah Winfrey Oprah Winfrey does a great job, but Whoopi Goldberg is so good in this role. So good to the point where I really regret the fact that we don't have more of these roles from her. I mean, yes, I know that she got the Oscar for Ghost. I've never seen Ghost, but I don't think she has done more roles like this, and she was so good in this. I don't know what else was up that year for Best Actress. I know she didn't win, and I know she at least deserved to be nominated because there are just some beautiful moments in this film. There definitely are some issues. There's some odd tone things because, like I said, it's very serious. They're exploring some very deep, really sad topics that are going on here. But then some of the lighter moments, not all, but there are some of the lighter moments that teeter on goofy and almost to the point of like nonsensical. But I didn't feel like those were enough to kind of overshadow what was going on. I think some of that may have been just as in an attempt to balance out the tough stuff. I think this was one of Steven Spielberg's first forays into straight drama. I mean, there are definitely some more serious things that he had done. I mean, obviously, E.T.'s got, it's basically a film about, single parenthood. So he definitely deals with some more serious topics, but this is some really dark stuff. So he may have had a difficult time balancing tone. And while I think that he definitely got better with it over time, I really enjoyed this. And I went into this having I watched the Spielberg documentary, and this was one of the ones that was talked about as one of his lesser films. And possibly in this vein, yeah, but I really liked this. I really enjoyed the storytelling. And I don't know. I'm also just a sucker for good story. So maybe the story won me out, and maybe the film work itself wasn't as strong as it should have been. And yes, there were one or two storylines that side storylines that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but the overall basis of this film really got me. So while I do think it has some issues, and it probably, if he had tackled this later in his career, it probably would have been stronger. But I still think what we got was great. So I'm going to give this a 3 as well. So just to recap, Big Night, suggested by Dan Buck, 3. About Time, suggested by Jessica, 3. I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay, suggested by Erica, 3. No Time for Sergeants, suggested by Sheila. It was a fun film, but 2. And The Color Purple, suggested by Elizabeth, 3. Just some good, solid films. So, like I said, this is the last video for the 50 film challenge. I just want to thank everybody that suggested films and everybody that has been watching these videos. I know sometimes I do the worst the worst Bob Newhart impression, but I really appreciate everybody for watching. And I don't know if I'm going to do anything more like this. I am doing a film project. Maybe I'll let you guys know about that later. But if you want to hear more from me, I am currently doing a podcast, Dudes Do Disney. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. You can find us there. You can also check us out on Twitter at Dudes Do Disney 1. We have an Instagram, dudes_do_Disney. We have an email address, but you don't need that unless you watch it or listen to it. So if you want to check more of me out, you can do that there. And if I have any more projects, I'll definitely announce it there. And maybe I'll do something for this as well. But like I said, thank you guys for watching. As always, feel free to comment and let me know what you think. Agree or disagree with me, however you feel. And thank you guys very much for watching. See ya.